Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Bring the World Home. Bring the World Home is a production of the Returned Peace Corps Volunteers of Hawaii. And in each segment, we visit with a volunteer who has served in one of the 132 countries around the world that is served by the United States Peace Corps. We invite you to look into the idea of serving with Peace Corps as a volunteer. Today we have with us Mr. Ed Knox, who is a volunteer in the Philippines. Ed, welcome to Bring the World Home. We're
Thank you.
happy you were willing to devote a little bit of time with us to share some of your insight gained in the Philippines. You were there from 2005 to 2007, is that correct?
Yep.
So you're just fresh back in Hawaii. You're a native son, a local boy, born and raised in Waimanalo.
Yep.
And we appreciate your willingness to come and share with our audience some of the experience that you have. We always like to show people where a country is. Of course, we're out here in the middle of the Pacific, Hawaii, and you served in the Philippines. Of course, there's a great connection between Hawaii and the Philippines. What was the island that you were on in your service?
The two main islands are Luzon in the north and Mindanao in the south.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the islands in the middle are the Visayas. On the western edge is Palawan. And the province of Palawan also encompasses the Calamian group, which is north.
Okay.
And I was on the biggest island in the Calamian group called Busuanga.
Do you know if in Hawaii there's a large population of expats from Busuanga here?
I don't think so. Most of the original inhabitants of the Calamians and the province of Palawan were indigenous groups, like
Okay.
the Tagbanwa. But actually they aren't even the majority in Palawan now. Most of the people living in Palawan came from the eastern Visayas, places like Negros and Leyte.
Well, that, so as an indigenous, I wasn't even aware that there was a major indigenous population in the Philippines.
There's
and I
many,
thought I knew a lot
many.
about it.
The Filipinos aren't what you consider a classically homogeneous ethnic group. They've had waves of immigration from China and Malaysia and Indonesia, and they speak over 100 languages there. It was really it was the Spanish colonists who sort of formed the Philippines as a country.
As a country, okay.
I remember hearing that actually maybe once every 10 to 15 years they discover a new tribe living up in the mountains someplace or in a jungle that they didn't know about.
Uh-huh. It's a testament to the vastness of the country itself. We're kind of getting a little bit ahead of our conversation here. For our viewers, we'd like to get a little more background on you in hopes that somebody can relate to your situation and your interest in becoming a Peace Corps volunteer or volunteering in the first place, and maybe get the idea of going into service themselves at some point in their life. You grew up here in Hawaii and from
Yep.
Waimanalo on Oahu.
Mm-hmm.
And did you go to attend college here in Hawaii?
No, I went to Iolani School
Okay.
until I graduated from the 12th grade, and then I went to American University in Washington, D.C.
And you were studying
History.
What? History. You got a Bachelor of Science,
Arts.
Bachelor of Arts in History, and what point did you become aware of the Peace Corps? And
I think I knew about the Peace Corps just through popular culture.
Okay.
For maybe since I was a teenager. I don't think I considered it for myself until maybe my junior or senior year in college.
Uh-huh. And so you, after graduation from college, you...
It started in my senior year. I can't exactly remember what my plans were. I think they had some mix of law school and maybe the State Department. But
There's possibilities of what to do after graduation?
Well, as possibilities of what to do after the Peace Corps. I'm not really sure how the Peace Corps got in there. It just did.
This permeates our culture to the degree that it.
I at some point I just decided that was going to be what I would do directly after graduating.
And so you put in an application, and how long did it take from the time you were had submitted your application till you heard word from the Peace Corps?
There was a recruiter who held a seminar on campus.
Oh.
American University apparently is one of the high recruitment universities.
Right near the headquarters of Peace Corps.
And so I worked with the recruiter going through the interview and the application process and the background checks and the medical checks, and I think I finished the medical checks about 7 months after I first applied.
And did you request to go to a certain place in the world?
Well, I'd already traveled through East Asia, through China, when I was a student. And in the meantime, after I graduated college, but before I would be able to start my Peace Corps service, I volunteered as an English teacher in Vietnam.
Oh.
So I did request East Asia because I felt like I had some familiarity with that region. Actually, I thought they were going to offer me a spot in Thailand or China. When they offered me the Philippines, I said, okay. I had been told and had sort of prepped myself to the idea that Peace Corps was a lot about flexibility. It was a lot about
Yes.
Being adaptable.
Well, then you followed through in great form. The idea that service in a place that you're kind of didn't have your heart set on is typical, I think, as you're referencing for a volunteer. And the idea of going to a place that is so vast and varied as the Philippines. You obviously studying history a little bit, you must have known a little.
No,
you know nothing about the Philippines.
Not much. No, I mean, my history studies in school had been mostly about America and Europe. A little bit about in East Asia. It had been more about China and Japan. I really didn't know much about the Philippines until I got there.
And when you got your assignment, did you do most of your training in the Philippines or some training in the United States prior to going overseas?
No, we did all of our training in the Philippines. We met in Detroit, all 82 or 83 of us.
Large group.
For maybe just 2 or 3 days.
And the group was going to be principally teachers, or?
I think the group was pretty evenly split between, they didn't call us teachers, they called us basic education and technical assistants, because beyond just teaching, we had to try to work on library development and general school development. And also, when it came to teaching, and this, I'll tell you later, proved a little bit problematic, for the sake of sustainability and skills transfer, we were assigned to try not to teach classes explicitly. We were trying to be teacher trainers.
Okay.
So the beta group was maybe about a fourth of the total group. Then another fourth would have been the business advisors, and the remaining half would have been water and sanitation, environmental, coastal resource management.
And that whole group trained all in the same locale as a group?
No.
As an 80-person group?
We only spent about 3 days in Detroit before we flew to Manila.
Okay.
And then we spent another week altogether just outside Manila, and then they split our group into 4 training groups. One went to northern Luzon, one went down into southern Luzon, which is the group I went with, and then 2 groups went down into the Visayas.
Okay.
Now, I said that Palauan is sort of part of the Visayas, but for administrative purposes, they had us, at least with the Peace Corps, they had us with the Southern Luzon group.
Well, there's, as I understand it, in the Philippines, about 81 different kind of regional districts.
They have regions, and the regions, I think, number about 15 or so. And they have provinces, which would be sort of analogous to our states.
Yeah.
And then below the provinces, it's municipalities. Below the municipalities is the smallest political unit, which is the barangay.
Okay.
And then they'll have districts in the barangay called sitios. But those don't have much administrative purpose.
You were assigned to do then what type of work in this community that you were heading for as a training ground?
Well, I was a beta volunteer, and I was assigned to a high school.
Define beta volunteer for us.
That was the acronym. I'm sorry. I still I start to speak in acronymese.
That's all right.
Beta was the basic education and technical assistance.
Okay, BETA, beta.
The pseudo teachers.
All right.
I was assigned to a small high school in a rural rice farming village. The way that our training went about was that we were down Los Baños, which is about an hour south of Manila, and that was our training hub. But then we were broken up into even smaller groups into communities around Los Baños, and we were placed into individual host families. And every day
Living with the host family.
we'd get together and we'd practice a language. For us, it was Tagalog. For different groups, it might have been Cebuano or different Visayan or Ilocano.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe once a week, we'd all come back to the hub site and do training there. And I had a really supportive host family, and I made friends with the volunteers near me. So no, training was fairly easy.
Once the training period was over, you sometimes volunteers define their own scope of work. Sometimes they're installed to follow up on another volunteer's work. What was the nature of your assignment subsequent to training, or your?
Well, they said that they were shying away as much as they could from having volunteers following up on another volunteer. They were trying to, if they were going to put a volunteer into a location that had a volunteer, they'd try and leave a few years in between. They said that was because they wanted to break down some expectations. Some volunteers had gone to a site, and the Filipinos there had said, "Oh, you're John's replacement. Good, you'll do everything John did, and you'll do it how John did it.
Yeah.
And we might even call you John."
And that didn't settle very well with an Ed, did it? Would it?
No.
Or even a Chip. What did you do for your first year?
Well, I was working at the school, and I didn't get much done for the first year.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to assess the English language capability and how I could be of use. I told you that there was some problems with the design of the beta group as teacher trainers.
Elaborate for us, please.
Well, the biggest problem was that a lot of the teachers had neither the time nor the inclination to be trained. That wasn't to say that they didn't care about the jobs. It was just because they had families to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
They had other obligations.
These are host country national
Yes.
teachers.
Yes.
And so you're implying that they weren't really teachers if they needed further training, or
No, I'm
elaborate.
implying that they didn't really want training. They didn't have the time, the extra time for it. They weren't going to get paid extra for staying 2 hours after school. there was no electricity, so they had to get home and cook food before it got dark for their family.
And
They-
that puts you in a big bind. What am I going to do with these people that won't cooperate? Huh?
Well, I understood their position.
Sure.
My bind was usually with the Peace Corps office in Manila. I, like many of the Beta volunteers, argued for change in the program. And actually, towards the end of my service, they did change it for the groups coming in. My group had complained enough about the design of the Beta program.
It sunk into the bureaucratic hierarchy of Peace Corps.
Bureaucracies anywhere take time.
Yeah. And so, well, this sounds like it could be very frustrating for you.
Oh, it definitely was.
How did you manage to utilize that frustration or deal with it,
Well,
eliminate it?
Well, there
Springboard off it.
was two ways. The one way was just pure frustration, and it was, many times I entertained the idea of early termination,
Okay.
just going home. The creative outlet was that I looked at secondary projects. I looked at library development. I got involved with the home economics classes. I got in touch with programs in the nearby town. So there was a give and a take. There was a
You were able to be creative and find something to start feeling was a good use of your time. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, you know about this, I'm sure, but I'll say it out that the Peace Corps is almost like a mini existential crisis. You go there and you will just sit for hours thinking, how can I be useful to these people? And in some ways it can be frustrating, especially if you don't feel like you're getting cooperation from the Peace Corps office in Manila or the host country nationals. And in some ways it can be really liberating that you can just be as creative as possible. Anytime you just wouldn't think, going about your daily life, how can I fix any problem that I can see around me? You accept the system around you, but when you're put in this place where your only purpose is to be productive and helpful,
Yeah.
then you do try. You try whatever works, and you keep trying. And some things stick, and when they do, it feels good.
Yeah. It must feel good because the creative juices flowing, I'm sure. The satisfaction of being able to come up with something on your own is the essence of, I think, good Peace Corps volunteerism, perhaps all volunteerism. You're to be commended for toughing it out,
Thank you.
for coming up with something. So you did find some alternatives. Were those alternatives ultimately satisfying for you?
Yes. What I was able to do for the school in the rice farming village was a combination of capital improvements and some extracurricular programs. The capital improvements were, I talked to a friend in Manila, and with his help we were able to bring down, I think it was maybe 14 or 15 boxes of books for their library. We tripled the size of their library.
Wonderful.
And also had books to spare for the elementary school. The other thing that I did, and this was really sort of out of the blue, I noticed that the home economics class often had to cook on a wood fire out behind the building. And so the next time I went to town, I went to an internet cafe and I looked for the American Society of Baking. And I sent them a cold email telling them I was a Peace Corps volunteer, and I got a response from the president, Thomas Cook, and I asked him for a grant to buy an oven for this little rice throwing village so that they could learn to bake. And after a lot of negotiation and back and forth, they sent us $500, and with that we bought a little white gas oven about this big, and we shipped it down from Manila to the village, and I believe they're still using it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the people that you were, the Philippine people that you were working with? Was it mutual respect between you and them to you?
Well, I was a lot younger than most of the teachers there, so I was sort of like this boisterous kid, this energetic kid, kind of poking my head around, saying, you know, can we do this? Can we do that? I think they generally liked me. The Filipino people are extremely nice people. It's their culture is very effusive. And so it's very rare that you're ever going to feel put out in the Philippines.
Do you still have contact with people there?
I still keep in touch with my first supervisor, Principal Aurelia Tipanilio, a Peace Corps volunteer who came a year into my service, Aaron Simmons. He came to my island, but at a different location, just as Dr. Panlilio changed principal jobs from our high school to that high school. So she traded off jobs but got a new Peace Corps volunteer right off the bat. And Aaron was an information technology volunteer, and so he got her an email address, and with that I still keep in touch with her. I also have a lot of friends, Filipino friends my age. Some of them from the town, some from Manila.
Well, this is a good testament to the creativity that many Peace Corps volunteers exhibit and find within themselves. You're part of, you're example of a great group. And in the 3 minutes or so that we have left, I'd like to ask you, you were telling me a little bit about the community association or community center that you were working with. How did that ultimately fit into your time there?
Well, I told you that at first I'd been very frustrated with the position of being a teacher trainer. It was not a very workable job description.
Yes.
I did find some satisfaction from capital improvement projects. There were some extracurricular projects. We brought some people up from the town to give seminars. But when I got an offer from a woman named Leah Ramos, she lived in the town. Her family owned a large building that they weren't using commercially. She cared about the education of her hometown. She was sort of more urbane. She flew in and out. She had a Spanish husband, and she loved her hometown, but she felt like it was a little provincial, and she wanted greater literacy, greater education. And so she said, Mickey, why don't you and Aaron Simmons, the other volunteer, was there by then. He said, why don't you and Aaron use this building to start a community center? You can have English classes, we could bring in some art classes, community events. And I had just, I'd gotten the library materials and the oven for the school. I was just finalizing the seminars that I had worked on. And I wasn't sure how much else I could accomplish up in the village for the last 6-7 months of my service. So I jumped on the opportunity, and I still went up to the village a few times, but I stayed most of my time down in the town working on this community center. We worked on getting it registered with the Philippines SEC. and getting it registered in the municipality. We hosted English classes for community college students. We did get art and music classes going there. I've been in email contact with Aaron Simmons, the other volunteer, and he says it's still going strong.
Oh, that's
It's good to
wonderful.
hear.
Your varied experience really points out the opportunity that volunteers have, and in allowing themselves to feel out where opportunity presents itself. Your descriptions of all of the various undertakings that you succeeded in, despite your initial
You have to be adaptable.
problem, really points up the beauty of the Peace Corps opportunity.
You have to be
But
flexible.
thank you very much for joining us today,
You're welcome.
Ed. I hope that you might consider coming back and sharing some more of your stories with us
Perhaps.
another
Perhaps.
episode. I appreciate our viewers tuning in, and hope that you learned a little bit about the nature of volunteerism for the Peace Corps, what service is like in the Philippines, and an area of the Philippines that's not familiar to a lot of us here in Hawaii. We hope that Bring the World Home might stimulate you to investigate the opportunities of Peace Corps volunteerism. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you again next week.